Hello everyone. In this tutorial, I will be showing you the steps to basically connect to a VirtualBox VM using any SSH client like PuTTY, MobiXDump, and we will show you how the networking should be configured on the VirtualBox side, what are the pre-checks we should perform on the actual Linux client, to make sure the end-to-end connectivity works out of the box. Now the steps which I am going to show you as part of this demo will work on basically any Linux variant, whether it is Ubuntu, Debian, Red Hat, Fedora, CentOS, etc. You can verify and use the same steps on any of these Linux variants. Maybe some commands may vary. For example, on certain variants, the service name of SSH may vary, but in general, the service name of SSH would be either SSH only or SSHD. But other than that, most of the steps, whatever I'm going to show you, will be applicable on Oracle VirtualBox. Now, the same can be also applied on VMware Workstation, but some of the steps may be different over there. For this particular demo, I have installed Ubuntu 24.10, where I will be showing you the steps how can I connect via SSH into my Ubuntu VM, which is running on an Oracle VirtualBox. So let's get started. First thing which we have to make sure is that our SSH service is up and running properly. We can verify the same via the system status. As you can see in my case, the SSHD service is perfectly up and running. Next, I have to find out the port number on which the SSH service is listening, because by default, we all know that the standard port used by SSH is 22, but in many cases, the end user or the environment may have customized the port on which the SSH service is running. So it is important we know the port number as well. We can verify the same by using either ss command or netstat command by listing down all the listening ports. So as you can see in my case, SSH is running on port 22, which is the standard port. There has been no modification. Next, we should make sure that the firewall is not blocking the incoming connection on port 22. The commands to allow incoming connections towards port 22 may vary depending upon the variant what you're using. In my case, since this is a live environment, I have disabled the firewall, but in your case, if the firewall is running and you want to allow port 22, then you can execute this particular command. If you are using a different port number, you can replace the port number with your particular SSH port number and just execute enter. But in my case, since my firewall is disabled, so I have nothing to check over here. And if you are having Red Hat based system, then you might need to execute firewall D commands. I have already written an article covering this topic where I have also covered the commands and the pre-checks to be done. You can come to this article and find the required commands to basically allow port 22 or any other port to allow incoming connections to SSH. And if you want to know more about firewall D commands, I have written another detailed article explaining multiple commands and arguments which we can use with the firewall D command. This is just for your FYI. I'll be leaving the links of these articles in the description section for your reference. You can please go through them. Okay, so for the time being, we know our SSH service is up and running. We know our SSH is running on port 22 and our firewall is not a problem. Now next, we will jump to the VirtualBox settings. Now, if you are a beginner and you have started to use VirtualBox for the first time, I can understand the networking options of the VirtualBox can be a little bit of overwhelming because of the kind of options it has. So just to keep this very simple, I'm going to show you two basic options, or rather network options, which we can use in the Oracle VirtualBox to make an SSH connection to the VirtualBox VM. This is the Ubuntu VM which I am using right now for the demo. In my case, currently I have attached two network adapters over here, as you can see, 1 and 2. The first one is currently set to NAT, while the other one is set to host-only adapter. The host-only adapter is something which we will not be covering in this article. As I said initially, we'll be exploring two network options. One would be NAT and the other would be bridged adapter. You have to be sure and not get confused with this other option called NAT network. We will not be using NAT network. We will be using only NAT or bridge adapter to connect to our VM via SSH. Now, since I already have a NAT option available over here, let me tell you how this would work. Just select this option over here, go to advanced, click on port forwarding, create a new rule. By default, you'll not find any rule over here. Just click on this plus icon, add a new rule. If you want, you can give a custom name to this rule or you can leave the default. Protocol should be TCP because our SSH service is listening on TCP port. After that, we don't want to give any host IP, leave it empty. Give a very random port number over here. It can be any port. Try to give more than 1024 or more than 1000 because less than 1024 ports are mostly used by the system services. We don't want any conflict. So try to use a very random port over here. It can be anything. Then the target guest port has to be 22 because our SSH service was listening on port 22. Once you have done this, click OK and save this. In my case, my host port is 1001. So I'll just leave this. Let me open PuTTY. Now, in this particular case, in the host section, we have to give 127.0.0.1. And over here, we have to give 1001. So this 1001 is the port number which we had configured in the port forwarding rule. After that, click on open, and this will automatically route the connection to our VM. So over here, I can try to log in with my user, and I'm connected to my VM. So as you can see, using this method, we can perform an SSH connection to our VM without any issues. Now, what are the advantages of this method? In this particular case, assuming you're working on a corporate environment or some system environment where you're working on VPNs. Now, the VPN becomes a problem all the time whenever you're working or connecting to a VirtualBox VM. In this particular case, since we are using port forwarding, so even if your system is connected to a VPN, you will still be able to connect to your VirtualBox VM via SSH without any issues. Now, the next option which we will be discussing is the bridge network. With bridge network, we will be basically accessing our VM using the same network in which we have configured our desktop or laptop. Because currently, for example, my laptop is connected to a Wi-Fi adapter and my laptop is getting this particular IP at the moment in the 192.168 range. Once we connect our VM to the bridge network, then my VM will also get the IP directly from my Wi-Fi adapter in the same range. So to be able to configure the same, we'll come to the VirtualBox, go to the settings. In your case, if you want to add a new adapter, you have to power off the VM, then go ahead and add a new adapter. In my case, since I already have two adapters over here, I will change one of these to bridged adapter and leave everything else to default. We don't have to modify anything else. Then click on OK. Once you make this change, we can open the terminal and verify the network settings. At the moment, I don't see any network attached to my interface. It is showing as down. So let me switch to root user because I'll have to execute most of the commands as root. So as you can see, at the moment, my interfaces are down and I have to make sure that I configure this particular interface with bridge network. Now I've already changed my network settings on the adapter on VirtualBox. Now to be able to assign a proper IP address over here, let's verify the current network method, whether it is IPv4 via static IP or via DHCP. We can use NMCLI for this purpose. It's very handy tool. Okay, at the moment it is set to auto, which is a good thing. So I don't have to assign the IP statically and my Wi-Fi adapter will take care of assigning the IP address automatically. In case in your system this is set to something else, then you can change this to auto. And if you still prefer to use static IP, then you should know the particular IP which you want to assign to your interface. But for my case, let me assume and keep it to auto. I don't want my Wi-Fi adapter itself to assign the IP to my VirtualBox VM. And to refresh the network configuration, I'll be executing NMCLI networking off first of all, then on. Now let me re-verify if an IP is assigned. Yes, as you can see, I have got a new IP in the range of 192.168 range, which is same as what I had in my laptop. This would mean that I was able to get the IP address from my Wi-Fi adapter properly. Now, since I have a proper IP address, I can try to connect to my VirtualBox VM using any SSH client such as PuTTY. And we have successfully connected to our VirtualBox VM. So these are the two methods which we can use to perform an SSH to a VirtualBox VM which are running on Linux. Now, when should you choose bridge adapter over NAT adapter? That is something you'll have to figure out based on your use case and requirement. I have also explained the same over here in my article. Now, as I said, for NAT adapter, you should choose when you are working on a system with VPNs and you want to be still able to connect to your VM via SSH. But If you are not working on VPN and you want a very simpler way of connecting to your system, then you can also go for bridged adapter, in which case you'll be having the same IP as what you are having in your laptop or desktop. So it entirely depends on you. I personally prefer NAT because I have to work on VPN most of the time, and every time I connect to VPN, the local network goes unreachable and my VM becomes inaccessible. So in such cases, NAT is very helpful. So that's it for now. I have explained you two methods, that is NAT and bridge network, using which you can access your VirtualBox VM via SSH when your VM is running on a Linux environment. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out using the comment sections. Thank you.